Listen very carefully, for I shall say this only once. 2 mod chaplains from the Armed Forces Scooter Club were riding fast on a lambretta. Suddenly they were stopped by a policeman who said, "What do you think you're doing? What if you had an accident?" The chaplains replied, "Calm down, my dear. Don't worry, my son. Jesus is with us." "Then in that case," replied the policeman, "you're nicked. 3 people cannot ride on a scooter." A biker from Ride to the Wall called on his local priest. "Father," he said, "I've sinned big time." The priest said to him, "Go home and squeeze 3 lemons into a glass and drink it." "Will it take away all my sins, Father?" the biker asked. "No," said the priest, "but it'll wipe that smile off your face." It's a great honor to be here today, and I'm grateful to Charlie Bagot-Jewett, Major General Lamont Kirkland, Martin Dickinson, and to you all for this invitation to be here. As I stand here, it's very, very awesome. The Armed Forces Memorial contains the names of 16,000 servicemen and women killed on duty or by terrorist action since the end of the Second World War. When you see their names on those walls, you cannot but help be moved by their supreme sacrifice. They gave their lives that you and I might have peace and freedom. And the words of Jesus, "Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends," echoes in my mind. Chaplains, sin bosuns, sky pilots, devil dodgers, bish, call it what you may, have always accompanied their men and women in war, and the same is true today. But I look back to the Second World War, when 16 Royal Navy chaplains went to sea, never to return. The Reverend Christopher Tanner was chaplain to the battle cruiser HMS Fiji. In 1941, his ship was off the coast of Crete, trying to prevent the German landings. The destroyers Greyhound and Gloucester were sunk, and Fiji was ordered to help and rescue the survivors. There was continual air attack, and finally HMS Fiji was hit and sunk by a single bomb. Sailors, dead and alive, lay in the cold sea. Their voices could be heard across the waters. Chaplain Christopher Tanner was a rugby international and a strong swimmer, and after helping the wounded, he was among the last to leave the ship, and as she sank, he used his strength to save others. Finally, a destroyer arrived, and Tanner swam back and forth, saving many. After 30 life-saving trips, Tanner was exhausted, but he forced himself to make one last effort. Just one more sailor required his help. Despite protests from fellow shipmates, Tanner saved that last sailor's life. Then he hauled himself onto the destroyer, collapsed and died. His heroic deeds were recognized by the award of the Albert Medal in 1942. William Bonzi, chaplain of HMS Gloucester, also died. 1941 was a bad year for the chaplains branch. 7 chaplains lost their lives, 5 of them in the Mediterranean. Robert James Patrick Stewart, a chaplain since 1935, was lost in HMS Hood while she was hit in action with the German battleship Bismarck, the 24th of May, 1941. The new battleship Prince of Wales was in company with Hood and continued in action after Hood was sunk. She received 7 hits and her bridge was a mess. We know that her chaplain, Wilfred Graham Parker, led the ship's company in prayer. Just before action, Parker was called to the bridge by Captain Leach. Padre, we're going into action. We shall need help, and I want you to read a prayer to the ship's company. Can you remember that prayer which begins, "Oh God, you know how busy I am"? "Yes, sir," replied the chaplain. "It's Jacob Ashley's prayer before the Battle of Edge Hill. As the Prince of Wales steamed into action and the men prepared the 14-inch guns for war, before the order to fire, there came to every corner of that ship the sound of the chaplain's voice saying, 'O Lord, you know how busy we must be today. If we forget you, do not you forget us. For Christ's sake, Amen.'" And then the guns fired. As chaplain to HMS Ark Royal in 1994, I was very fortunate to meet the Reverend Pocock. He served in the Navy from 1936 to 1963, and he spent most of his ministry with the Royal Marines. It is he who wrote the Royal Marines Prayer. During the war, he was sunk at sea and came to death at least 4 times. He was a great friend of the Reverend Bonzi, who died in HMS Gloucester off Crete. Pocock said of him, "I could not have had a finer companion and friend. After he had gone, I missed him enormously." Sitting talking with the Reverend Pocock, I was touched by the sacrifice these men and women have made for us. Yes, ordinary service men and women who gave so much. They made the ultimate sacrifice for you and me, and they must never be forgotten. And the same is true for those who have died for peace and freedom in our time, in recent years. As chaplain to HMS Drake, in the past 4 years, I've had to break the sad news of bereavement and loss to at least 10 families, and I know what that involves. This memorial is an awesome place, a monument to sacrifice, and it is right and proper that we remember them, for they made that ultimate sacrifice for us. Northern Ireland, 507. The Falklands, 258. The Gulf War, 47. Iraq, 170. And Afghanistan, 382. We may no longer see them, but they continue to ride by our side in our hearts, minds and prayers. Precious memories which we shall treasure forever. Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
Please could I ask any recliners to come forward.
have an echo over there, sit down, and then we'll go up when it's all, yeah, there's just some seats over there. Come back when you want me to,